Elizabeth was surrounded by a court of adventurers and alchemists, who advised the Queen to participate in the conquest. Elizabeth's reign began shortly after the death of the Catholic Queen Mary I. Mary's death had ended a tense struggle between Catholic and Protestant factions over the throne. Elizabeth's father, Henry VI, had an unusual propensity for marrying, and then dispensing with his wives. One of them, Anne Boleyn, was Elizabeth's mother. Boleyn was accused of the crime of fornication and was beheaded, making Elizabeth illegitimate. That status was not important to the family of the Duke of Northumberland, who wanted a Protestant ruler. The Duke and his group attempted a coup to put Elizabeth on the throne instead of Henry's other daughter, Mary. The so-called Dudley conspiracy ended badly for the 20 conspirators. They were sent to the Tower, some to be executed, and others to be imprisoned. Elizabeth, however, remained physically unharmed, but the affair made her almost paranoid. A few weeks after Mary's death, on a precise day, January the 15th, 1559, picked by Elizabeth's astrologer, Dr. John Dee, Elizabeth was made Queen of England. She had been drawn to the occult since childhood, and it was one commonality she shared with her father. Her long-term friend and rumoured lover Robert Dudley introduced Elizabeth to Dee. Dee had been hired by the Duke of Northumberland to teach science to his 2 sons. Dee's reputation as a sorcerer grew from his school days, when in the middle of a Greek play at Cambridge he displayed an ability to levitate a large scarab. The year he graduated, he was imprisoned as a sorcerer. The short imprisonment did not hurt his chances at gainful employment. He soon found himself a favourite of Elizabeth's court, and was given a home called Mortlake. At Mortlake the Kabbalist, alchemist, and mathematician amassed a library of 4,000 volumes, the largest in England. Dee's library would be used by 2 of England's greatest chroniclers, Hakluyt and 204 from the sacred to the profane Holinshedh. To Dee there was no divide between science and magic. He displayed a magic mirror that mystified all but would not allow anyone to reveal what he or she had seen. A maid reported that she had seen a cloud of bees swarm downstairs from his chambers, plainly familiars of the doctor. Dee introduced Elizabeth to Francis Kelly, who claimed to be able to transmute metals into gold. Elizabeth hired him to avoid taxing her subjects. Dee persuaded Elizabeth that she was entitled to enormous areas in the New World based on claims that the Saxon version of the Greek conqueror Alexander, King Edgar, had made. Her Majesty was also a direct heir of King Arthur, according to Dee. Dee convinced Elizabeth that Britain had a destiny to rule as Britannia, and that as an island the country needed a great navy. He told her that the Americas were to be the new Greater Britannia, the virgin continent for the Virgin Queen. Now the quest was on for the new Avalon. Having been confined to her palace, Elizabeth lived her life vicariously intellectually through Dr. Dee, emotionally through the men Dee brought to her. In 1570, wrote The Perfect Art of Navigation, and dedicated it to Christopher Hatton, who financed the maritime adventures of Elizabeth's court. Elizabeth gathered together Sir Francis Drake and Sir Walter Raleigh. Drake changed the name of his ship to the Golden Hind, which was the heraldic device on Hatton's family crest. Drake was then set loose to plunder the Spanish main and claim lands for Elizabeth. He brought her an emerald-studded crown, a diamond cross, and a share in the £235,000 worth of plunder from Spain. Her share alone exceeded her annual royalties. Drake is regarded as one of the greatest English sea captains of all time. His exploits as a navigator brought Britain into the world-encircling role of Britannia, the Empire. Drake declared Northern California to be over Albion, and claimed it for Elizabeth. His exploits as a privateer pirate with permission helped finance further voyages, and added to the coffers of the English kingdom. The Virgin Queen was quick to catch on to the ways of the world. She licensed trade, conquest, and Red Cross and Black Cargo 205 piracy. The risks were small, unless one includes war with Spain. The Spanish were indignant over the raids on their shipping and encroachment on their new lands, and so they threatened to invade England. Elizabeth's chief conjurer, John Dee, put a hex on the Spanish Armada, which is believed to have brought bad weather and the English victory. Elizabeth gave licenses to Dr. Dee, who at one time had the patent to all American lands north of 50 degrees latitude. The Queen also licensed explorers John Davis and Walter Raleigh to find a northwest passage to China and India. Sir Walter Raleigh was a maverick. Alternately in and out of favour with the Queen, Raleigh was renowned for his bravado, energy, and intelligence. For Elizabeth and the glory of Britannia, Raleigh searched South America for the legendary treasure of El Dorado. He believed that a source of gold was not far from the Orinoco River, which he called the River of the Red Cross, a reference to the Templars. Raleigh believed he was meant to play the role of the Red Cross Knight, a figure in the Faerie Queene by Edmund Spenser. 28 Raleigh did go down in history as the first to briefly attempt colonization in the New World, which failed. He at least managed to imprint the Queen's name on the New World, on the state of Virginia. John Hawkins, a cousin of Sir Francis Drake, introduced the English to the African slave trade. Other English captains before him had been to Africa, violating the exclusive trade claimed by Spain and Portugal. But Hawkins was given express permission by Queen Elizabeth to trade for slaves. Hawkins' backers included his father-in-law, Benjamin Gonson, the Treasurer of the Navy, and Sir Thomas Sludge, the Lord Mayor of London. 29 Hawkins had no qualms about capturing the slaves himself, or buying or stealing them from the Portuguese. His first voyage was a mild success, but his subsequent voyages made great profits, and for this he was knighted. His new crest included a female African figure. Chapter 12 Master Masons and their slaves. From his castle in New York, Frederick Phillips looked down the Hudson River, his highway to riches. From New York, ships owned by the Dutch-born entrepreneur sailed around the world. Phillips had come to America in 1647 and immediately recognized that the laws were not brought to bear on those who held the wealth. He started by selling gunpowder and rum to the pirates. 1 Then he moved on to providing financial backing for the pirates' voyages. Finally he graduated to become one of the pioneers of the American slave trade. It soon became a family business, with Phillips's son Adolph arriving in America from Madagascar on a ship full of slaves. With the money from piracy and the slave trade, the Phillips family bought what was once a Yonkers plantation and established more than one mansion on the Hudson. Despite his business interests, Frederick Phillips achieved respectability and wealth. He held political office, and was a long-standing member of the Council of New York. While many of the early colonists came to America seeking religious freedom, many also sought economic opportunity. Loosening the ties that bound society created opportunity. Not every freedom-seeking immigrant needed to exploit others to better himself. But for every Sam Adams there was a Caleb Cushing, and for every Thomas Jefferson there was a Thomas Perkins. The institutions and alliances made in the Old World prevailed in the New World. The system of an elite group, 206 master masons, and their slaves 207, that controlled the masses had existed from feudal times, and although it was altered by mercantilism the system still predominated. Men like Abraham Lincoln would carry the banner for equality and individual rights, while others would perpetuate the status quo. There is no dividing line to say where English slave trading ended and the American trade began. Tracing the start of slavery in what would become the United States, Hugh Thomas, author of The Slave Trade, found a letter from the Reverend George Downing of Harvard that was written to his cousin John Winthrop, governor of Connecticut. The letter suggested importing slaves into New England, and held British-owned Barbados as an example of the profits of slavery. George Downing's father, Emmanuel Downing, of Salem, also wrote to Winthrop suggesting the same. New England merchants had discovered that the trade was a lucrative business, even though the area itself had little need for imported labor. Massachusetts had only about 100 slaves in the 17th century,